Hey, this is Sharon and Juna. Welcome to Crazy Biatch Asians, the YouTube channel. The following audio was recorded for podcast purposes, so there are no visuals for this YouTube video.
Feel free to put down that phone, go for a walk, cook some food and listen to us chatter for the next little while.
If for some reason you don't want to listen on the YouTube platform, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Now, on to the ep. Hey, welcome to Crazy Biatch Asians. This is a podcast where we discuss the issues Asians can face in the Western world with a critical mind, a bit of healthy debate, and lots of tea. Hosted by Sydney-based digital marketer Sharon Jiang and journalist Juna Zhu.
Hey! Happy New Year, everyone. And what better way to start 2021 with a topic that you'll most likely encounter or have already encountered, the bamboo ceiling. With offices back in business and people going back to work, this issue is one that affects many Asian workers in the West. What is it? How does it affect you? And how can we crack the bamboo ceiling? Towards the end of 2020, I caught up with a friend who is of South Asian descent, and she was in a bit of a dilemma about her career progression and simply asked me the following. I don't know if you feel the same, but I would never ask for a pay rise or job promotion just because I see it as a sign of disrespect and it wasn't the way I was raised. Is this an Asian thing? And I replied to this question without hesitation, a big fat yes. It's something I can completely relate to, and it got me thinking about the general structure of my previous workplace where I was in a role for quite a few years. Where is the diversity in leadership roles?
Yeah, absolutely. I can also personally relate to that friend of yours, and I think it's because traditional Asian values tend to highlight humbleness and appreciation rather than to be headstrong and ask for what you actually want and possibly deserve.
Exactly.
So you are to be respectful to those above you and not get too ahead of yourself. And the idea of asking for a pay rise or promotion, which is quite frankly frightening for non-Asians, is only exacerbated for Asians who are raised with traditionalist values. And while this is quite an internal structure, there are also external factors that prevent Asians from getting ahead professionally.
Yes, and there is a term that explains exactly this, which you may have heard of before. It's dubbed the bamboo ceiling. So, you know the term the glass ceiling, which explains the barrier that prevents women from attaining the highest roles in organizations. Well, the bamboo ceiling is just a derivative of this term and was coined by executive coach Jane Hewen back in 2005 in her book, Breaking the Bamboo Ceiling, Career Strategies for Asians. And in her book, she addresses the barriers faced by many Asian Americans in the professional arena, such as stereotypes and racism, while also providing solutions to overcoming these barriers. And the bamboo ceiling, as defined by Hewen, is a combination of individual, cultural, and organizational factors that impede Asian Americans' career progress inside organizations.
And interestingly, the idea of the bamboo ceiling is actually also strongly linked to the term model minority.
Yes.
So model minority came about in the 1960s to describe how Asian Americans and Asians Australians, Asians in other Western countries, are seen as the successful migrants. A model minority is a minority group whose members are perceived to achieve a higher degree of socioeconomic success than the average population. For Asians, this is mainly achieved from education. So the stereotype that Asians are smart and study hard, which largely is true. During this time, Asians were glorified for being hardworking and law-abiding citizens. But this then relates to the bamboo ceiling because despite this perceived advantage, the bamboo ceiling can be a real issue. A writer at Fortune magazine explained the bamboo ceiling as the processes and barriers that serve to exclude Asians living in the Western world from executive positions on the basis of subjective factors such as, quote, lack of leadership potential and lack of communication skills, Emphasis on subjective, as they generally cannot actually be explained by job performance or qualifications.
Yeah, and research and real-world cases reveal that despite their achievements and being highly skilled and well-educated, Asians are still not being appointed to executive positions because of perceived personality traits that they are not assertive, strong, or confident leaders.
Yeah.
And according to a 2019 Australian Human Rights Commission report, less than 5% of Australians of Asian heritage make it to senior executive levels, and only 1.6% become CEOs.
I also think it's important to point out that this issue, while pervasive, is so hard to be absolute. Just because those numbers exist doesn't mean every single Asian who didn't get a top job got discriminated against.
Yes.
So Race Discrimination Commissioner Chin Tan said that, quote, inequality of outcome does not automatically equal discrimination. What we're discussing here is the general theory of the bamboo ceiling and some possible reasons rather than one that is super clear and super factual.
Yep, totally agree. Please do not take this as an excuse to blame a career failure based on racism, because that's certainly not the case for every company.
That is very true. But going back to those stats that you just mentioned, it does remind me of this quote I heard somewhere, and it really does sum up the bamboo ceiling in layman's terms. Asians are good workers, not good leaders.
That hits hard.
Yeah, it's very personal. But unfortunately, that's how many Asians are perceived in Western workplaces. There's a 2015 report on diversity in Silicon Valley by an Asian professional organization that found at the 5 big tech firms, Asians are well represented in lower level positions, but underrepresented at management and executive levels.
Yes, and talking about amazing quotes, there was another one that really caught my attention. It was by an Asian Australian Member of Parliament.
Oh,
Yeah,
represent.
Exactly, Asian represent.
Asians in politics, that's rare.
Kingsley Liu said, walking into the lobby doesn't mean you can get the elevator to the top floor, which perfectly sums up the whole bamboo ceiling term.
Yeah.
And through researching more into this topic, it was quite apparent that Asians don't tend to get high managerial roles due to differing leadership styles. To quote a Diversity Council Australia report, 61% of Asian Australians feel pressure to conform to the Western or Anglo style of leadership that values self-promotion and assertive, direct communication, and often misinterprets the more quiet, reserved humbleness and respect for seniority to be lack of confidence. And the report by research and consulting group Cultural Intelligence went on to explain that its interviewees articulated how their cultural upbringing impacted their work life. For example, some said children of Asian immigrants carried a reluctance to challenge elders, or, for example, would feel disinclined to voice an opinion unless spoken to or asked.
Yeah, that really hits home, to be honest. And it does link back to what your friend was talking about, feeling disrespectful if she asked for a pay rise or promotion. It seems to be in our cultural upbringing to have some of these personality traits of humbleness and respect. In an ABC article, a Vietnamese woman said that the differing of leadership styles is something she struggles with. She said, on one hand, there's this model of what a leader looks like. And it's very white, it's very male. It talks about the outspoken, the salesman, in-your-face style of leadership. And that doesn't sit comfortably with me. So perhaps an issue that Asians face in the workplace is, how do we stay true to our values and still make our way forward professionally?
It's something that I ask myself so often, and I'm so glad that I sat down with my friend who had the same feelings, and now talking to you, that you reciprocate this as well.
Yeah.
It's something I've struggled with a lot throughout my career. Just finding that balance is really difficult, and something that I think I will personally always struggle with.
Yeah.
But interesting that you also quoted a Vietnamese woman who noticed the disparity, because the bamboo ceiling for all Asians is a problem, but you add in gender stereotyping and you've got a whole other level of disparity for Asian women who have a tougher time gaining a voice in the workforce.
That is so true. You are so right about this. And I'm really glad that you brought this up, because the concept of intersectionality is quite an interesting one. Basically, intersectionality looks at how overlapping dimensions, so race, gender, sexuality, education, can affect a person's experience. For example, a gay Asian male has different obstacles to that of perhaps a straight black female. So while the bamboo ceiling does affect both men and women, once you add, like you said, gender stereotypes to the mix, women can be affected disproportionately.
Yeah, it just takes things to a whole other level.
Whole new level.
A whole new issue that we've got to deal with.
Exactly, yes.
But I just want to say that Asians are so fucking talented. And then you think about it, it's so stereotypical to see Asians working as your engineers and architects and in the medical field. Hello, doctor. And it's very rare that you see an Asian working, for example, as a managing director at a media company or in politics, minus the Kingsley guy that we just quoted.
Exactly. And also minus Penny Wong.
Oh, yes.
Go Penny Wong, represent.
And it starts from a young age too. So you don't actually need to enter the workforce to see the bamboo ceiling in play. It can actually happen during university, which is completely evident in that Harvard scandal.
I was so scared you were going to mention that.
Oh my God.
When you said scandal and university, I thought Harvard.
Oh my God, this was juicy in all the wrong ways.
Yeah, so right. Explain what happened for those who don't know.
So a financial review report pointed out that there is a direct parallel with recent scandals at Harvard University, where it emerged that Asian Americans were being discriminated against on the grounds of their personalities. Even though Asian students collectively scored higher than their peers as a group, they were also scored lower on subjective traits such as likability and having a positive attitude.
There's that subjective aspect again.
Over at MIT, the Dean of Admissions even described a Korean applicant as just another textualist math grind.
I'm sorry, he said what?
Just another textualist math grind.
A textualist math grind.
Great use of words.
Yeah,
like,
wow, that's very colourful.
String it all together into one sentence, and how dare you?
Oh my God. How did that even get out into the public? That's so inappropriate.
A dean of admissions.
Yeah. Can you imagine if he was describing you? How would you feel about that?
Again, because I'm Asian, I actually wouldn't speak up for myself.
Yeah.
I just nod, pay my respects because he is of...
The Dean of Admissions. You'd feel bad about yourself rather than like speaking up about it.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, that's another generalized perception of Asian workers. A textualist math grind. And I remember that Harvard case caused such a stir. The uni was actually taken to court on the basis of racial discrimination.
So they should have.
Well, I don't think the result is what we wanted.
Yeah.
So a lawsuit was filed by a group representing Asian American students called Students for Fair Admissions. However, in 2019, a federal judge rejected their claim that Harvard was intentionally discriminating against Asian American applicants. So, this issue wasn't legally recognized by the courts, which again just shows how subjective and probably silent this problem may be.
I'm going to come after you, federal judge. And despite actually working at a law firm for a brief period of my life, I have very little legal knowledge, and my main concern with something like this is how in the world do you hold someone accountable in a court of law when it comes to such a subjective topic and trait? It's not something you can prove.
Exactly. Again, we've said this word so many times. It is so subjective and based on people's opinions. So with the bamboo ceiling, it's so easy for a company's board of directors or a boss to say, well, the Asian who was going for that managerial position just didn't know how to manage people. He was a bad leader. He had bad communication skills. I mean, there's no explanation needed.
Total BS.
So with subjectivity in mind, what are some more obvious ways that Asians can be discriminated against in the workplace?
Okay, one aspect that was really prominent during researching for this episode was the issue of the accent.
Oh,
Yeah. So
I haven't even thought about that.
So of course,
True.
an accent would impact an individual's level of confidence
Yeah.
and perceived authority. There was also a 2019 Public Affairs article which interviewed a lady by the name of Irene Yu. She was the director of migrant and multicultural banking at Westpac and the Bank of Melbourne. So extremely successful.
Okay, yeah.
Go you, Irene Yu.
Oh, I see what you did there. Oh my God, I see what you did there.
Carrying on. To quote her, "It's very natural that customers will assume that I'm there to take coffee and take notes, as opposed to being a director."
On the basis that she's a minority and female.
And yet she's probably one of the most successful people at that bank.
Yeah. So I think the accent is an interesting point because there is an internal bias towards people who speak English with a minority race accent. For example, Indian, Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, whatever it may be. This is actually called accentism, where research has shown that we tend to unconsciously group people into a specific race or class and judge them based on accents. Apparently, it takes less than 30 seconds to linguistically profile a speaker, and our brains make a quick decision of ethnicity and race. And I actually personally think this is one reason why Asians tend to focus so much on education during primary, high school, university, and perfecting our English language skills in order to sidestep the judgment.
Yeah, I can totally relate to this. Going to a Western school, but being in a top English class and always obtaining great grades, it kind of
Reinforces.
that I fit into a school that I didn't appearance-wise fit in.
Exactly.
And I think this also carries well into the workplace as well.
Yeah. I can definitely relate to this too, because I think as an Asian student in a Western school, there is an additional pressure to do really well in English. Because it means that you can compete against your peers. And maybe does it subconsciously mean that it can set you up for success?
Ah, a hole has been filled in my heart. Thank you, therapist Sharon Jiang. A 2017 research done by the Academy of Management examined the impact of the Chinese accent on perceived employability. And they discovered that the more strongly accented you are, the more you're perceived as less competent, less likable, and less employable. What's interesting is that accented females received lower employability ratings than males. And again, this whole gender stereotyping disparity thing.
There's a lot of research actually going into that. And it leads back to how we were saying, if you combine the bamboo ceiling with gender stereotypes, it gives Asian females in the workplace this double whammy of obstacles to overcome.
Yes, but despite this all, we also have to point out that in our day and age, the community is evidently working towards putting an end to this workplace discrimination, and the term bamboo ceiling is definitely gaining traction worldwide.
Yeah, definitely.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of introducing interventions in order for other people who aren't from an Anglo background to step up into these leadership positions.
So, now that we're on the topic, let's look at some ways that we can try to break through the bamboo ceiling, no matter how difficult it seems right now.
Sob. R.I.P.
Single tear.
Okay, so we've established that the main reasons why the bamboo ceiling exists are the following. 1, Asian upbringing and cultural background. 2, Western leadership model.
Big one.
3, lack of strong mentorship and support. And 4, cultural diversity in the workplace is not fully understood yet. And I guess now it's just a matter of tackling each one of these reasons to reduce the severity. So, Shazabongo, our great minds, how do we do this?
Oh God, I personally have no clue. I feel like this topic is way beyond my brain. So I'm gonna bring in the big guns here. Enter stage right, Mr. Chin Tan, the Race Discrimination Commissioner at the Australian Human Rights Commission. Just look at that title.
Okay.
I mean,
wow.
yes.
Good on Shintan. He's another one that I'm adding to the list of people that I completely respect.
Absolutely. Okay, so he's not actually our guest on the podcast, but we will summarize some of his views.
What? I thought he was on our guest list today.
He's too important for this. So, in a 2019 speech he gave, Mr. Tan highlights the importance of diversity in the workplace. He said, and quote, "A diverse workforce enables new and different ways of thinking and attracts and retains a broader talent pool."
Hells yes, Mr. Tan.
Yes. So his speech is quite a lengthy read, but my take on Mr. Tan's perspective is that when we say diversity, we don't mean just fulfilling a company quota of 5 Asians in this department or like 10 black people in that department.
It's not like sprinkling a few colourful people.
Exactly. It's not a
amongst the
checklist.
sea.
Exactly. So like relating back to what we were saying about leadership styles, it may be useful for companies to understand that there's more than one type of leadership that makes a good leader. Organizations should start recognizing that the points of difference on an Asian worker, raised with values of humbleness, respect, and quiet reserve, may be more fitting than the assertive direct communication in some situations.
That's very true, but it also sounds like such a slow and laborious workplace culture change.
I know, it does sound like it.
Mr. Tan actually went on to point out that strong mentorship and training within a workplace is also important.
Yeah.
He says, quote, "While many Asian Australians have the requisite skills, qualities and qualifications to make good leaders in their chosen fields, like most skills and talents, they need to be developed."
Yeah, I definitely agree with you in regards to mentorship. And I think that is all well and good to desperately wish for your workplace to change into somewhere that fits you. But look, I hate to admit it, sometimes you just gotta bite the bullet and try to assimilate into your workplace as best as you can. For example, if you're shy and reserved, it may do you favors to practice assertiveness sometimes. And I think as immigrants, we've grown up with a heightened ability to adapt to our environment. I mean, think about it. We grew up in Western schools, learned a language that isn't our ancestral language. We're adopting a lifestyle that is often at odds with our parents. And those things, don't you think they just make us more resilient and more nuanced? So I don't think it's necessary to change everything in your personality to try and get ahead, but it may be useful to mold certain parts of yourself while still retaining these points of difference.
I'm going to take that amazing advice on board in
God.
2021, Miss Jane.
No, I don't think a lot of people would agree with me though.
No, but I think it's really important. You can't wait around for external factors to change things and then have your say or whatever, or, try to make a change. Like sometimes you've got to put your foot forward. You've got to put your personal needs first and just bite the bullet sometimes.
Yeah.
Not in all cases, but sometimes.
Exactly.
Assess the situation, see what the different outcomes are, and, go forth from there.
And I think Mr. Chintan had a lot of great points about the industry at large. But like you said, it's a slow and laborious culture change.
Yeah.
I mean, how many years would that be?
I know.
Will we be retired by then? Who knows?
No. I'm going to leave you with an awesome quote from the wise Chintan, who said, "An Asian Australian leader who is fortunate enough to make it through the bamboo ceiling is, in my view, a unique leader, and perhaps arguably a better one, for the reason that he or she has to deal and cope with an extra dimension of leadership challenges which may not usually apply to those in the leadership circle, namely his or her personal, racial, or cultural identity and experiences." Okay, Shazabongo, I have a few questions for you.
Go ahead.
1. After researching for this podcast, are you more inclined to speak up for yourself now?
I think that is such a tough one. But after doing all this research into leadership styles, I would definitely try to be more assertive in the workplace. But I think that's often easier said than done. I think for me, it's not only the race and gender that may be an obstacle. As a young worker who's still trying to find my footing in my career, you're often the new employee or a junior worker or assistant. So it's also the level of hierarchy that prevents me from speaking up.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little tough if that really relates to the bamboo ceiling or just the fact that I'm a young worker. What about you?
I definitely feel the same. And I 100% cannot walk the walk with this one. Like, I'll play out scenarios in my head. And then when it comes to actually speaking up, I'll just keep all my thoughts to myself. I'm literally that meme where it's like I internalize all my thoughts, but I look so happy on the outside. And also, I love everything about my current new job. So I have nothing to complain about at all. Okay, my second question. Have you had any personal experiences with the bamboo ceiling or workplace diversity?
Look, I'm going to be honest and say I don't think my career has been long enough to have reached the bamboo ceiling. I think that's quite an achievement to actually have reached that level because you're at quite a high level in a company. But I can think of one instance where a workplace I was at didn't quite understand diversity, which is one of the points that contribute to the bamboo ceiling. So in the interview with the boss of this advertising company, he was explaining why he would like to hire me for this role. And he said, I like how you're Chinese. You've got an Asian face and you can speak a second language.
This makes my blood boil every time you tell me this story.
Look, I would want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he just worded it poorly. I feel like I can understand what he's trying to say, but he just chose the absolute wrong way to go about it. But for me, the subtext was he was only hiring me to tick the diversity box. Like, yay, we have the Asian and the female worker, like kill two birds with one stone, my job is done. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Yeah. What about you? Have you encountered anything?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. For me, I've always thought that if you put your head down and you worked really hard, someone will eventually notice you.
Yeah.
And all your efforts. And I have to say that I've had a pretty good run in my career so far, although like I've still got many years ahead of me, and I've been extremely lucky with obtaining jobs, so I can't really speak personally on this matter. However, I do know that it's prevalent and something that needs to be dealt with, considering we are living in the 21st century and something like this is still such an issue.
Yeah. We've added in a new segment to the potty, so please give a warm welcome to, drumroll please, CBA College. You know, like your childhood tutoring school.
No, bad memories. Bad memories.
Don't worry, we're not going to keep you here for hours lecturing you about geometry or calculus. Instead, both of us will be sharing our most interesting fact of the week so you can actually walk away from this podcast having learnt something.
Yeah, I feel like I've watched so much TV lately that I have one brain cell left.
Me too. Too much Netflix, too many TV shows. So, do you want to go first, Junes?
Okay, I thought, why not start this whole new segment with the worst fact I could ever find.
Oh my god.
Total TMI.
No. Is it gross? Is it sexual? Or is it just flat out?
Gross. Just gross.
Okay.
So you know how we have a foot phobia?
No. Oh my god.
Well, this phobia is like it just exacerbates this whole thing. Enter earwax phobia. Trust me to find the most disgusting thing ever.
I'm sorry, what?
Okay, so how do you distinguish if you're Japanese, Chinese, or Korean by your earwax?
No. Oh,
here's your earwax 101 class. So earwax is made up of sweat and keratin in the ear. Many people without strong body odor, so you have less apocrine, sweat glands, I hope I said that word right, have dry, flaky earwax, while those that have more apocrine sweat glands have sticky wet wax. And Japanese, Chinese, and Koreans are most likely to have flaky earwax, while 80% of black and white individuals will have wet earwax. Thank you for coming to my earwax TED Talk.
Oh my god, I'd like my money back, to be honest.
Aren't you enlightened? This is a fact that you can drop at your next first date and it will send him running.
If you want to repel somebody, This is a great fact.
Great,
to drop.
yeah.
Did you come across this fact because you wanted to know what type of earwax you have? Do you know? Is that why?
Oh yeah, totally.
It was for personal reasons. That's the only reason why.
You know what? I'm just helping the people.
Helping the community.
Helping the community, the CBA community here.
Wow. In comparison to yours, mine is like so crap. Honestly, my fact is terrible. Okay, so my fact of the week is actually food related. So something to take you off of that disgusting earwax story.
No, now
that
you're
we
going to
heard.
vomit your food out.
Oh my God. Okay, so you know those things that you were given as kids, those little fortune cookies that you crack open?
Oh my God, totally.
With the little messages on the inside. You get them at Chinese restaurants.
Yeah, my mum and dad always used to say that only the Western people ask for fortune cookies and the Asian people get the fruit.
Oh my God, well here you go. So basically fortune cookies are not Chinese.
What?
Yes.
But they have the full-on red dragon on that black box that you get at like Woolies and Coles.
Well, you'd think. They're often served as a dessert in Chinese restaurants, but they didn't originate from China. They most likely originated from cookies made by Japanese immigrants to the United States in the late 19th or earlier 20th century.
So you're saying Chinese restaurants serve Japanese dessert?
Yeah. So basically, Chinese restaurants serve a westernized version of a Japanese dessert. It's super ironic because China and Japan are basically political arch enemies.
Yes, that's a whole other history lesson for another day.
Exactly. So if you get given one of those fortune cookies, they're not actually Chinese.
No wonder my parents were always like, no fortune cookie for you.
Exactly. They're a super westernized and a super American thing.
Yeah, all I had to do was like eat my rock melon and watermelon
God,
and
they're-
the oranges that you get given.
Yes, the sliced watermelon.
Watermelon.
They're way superior than fortune
Yeah.
cookies. Like, why would you want some like dry, bland cookie? Oh, no.
Exactly. Okie dokes. We've finally come to the end of our first episode of the year.
Woohoo!
Let's hope 2021 has lots of exciting things in store for you. I mean,
fingers crossed.
it can't get any worse than 2020, right?
No, definitely not. Definitely. Well, we started 2021 with some earwax facts, so I mean, we're off to a good start.
Girl, feel enlightened. Anyways, please subscribe to Crazy Biatch Asians on your favorite podcast app, and if you've got a sec, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so we can keep going.
See you all on the Instagram at Crazy Biatch Asians for the best Asian memes. And you can also find us on TikTok now.
No, major face palm.
Cringy TikTok.
Anyways,
Chat soon.
bye.